Hello everybody, welcome to today's video. So today we're going to do a prediction on the 2020 presidential election between the incumbent President Donald J. Trump on the Republican Party side and the incumbent House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi on the Democratic Party side. So Nancy Pelosi is basically a U.S. representative from the state of California who serves as House Minority Leader at this moment, and she actually served as Speaker of the House for a short period previously. But yeah, now she's the minority leader of the Democratic Party in the House of Representatives, and yeah, you already know this, that she's extremely unpopular among Republicans just after she said things about the tax cuts, about calling the benefits from the tax cuts crumbs, and calling for speaking against the president's strong border policy, and yeah, that doesn't sit well with Republicans and actually a lot of Trump voters, not a lot of, all of Trump voters. And Nancy Pelosi is also not popular in her own party. I mean, she's not liked by progressive Democrats, and she would lose a lot of their votes, and that would hurt her campaign in particular areas, and actually a lot of areas, and especially in the Rust Belt, in the Midwest, which is a crucial area in every presidential election. And yes, there might be a lot of votes abstentions, as a lot of Democrats don't want to either vote for her or or vote for the president. So yeah, they would stay home and not coming to vote at all, and that would just further make the situation worse for Pelosi. And yes, Pelosi is probably not going to run for president in 2020, but it's just fun to theorize this scenario. So without further ado, we're gonna see how the president is going to win this election. So we're gonna fill off this map with states that are safe for him. And now we're gonna fill the states that are safe for Nancy Pelosi. These states, regardless of her unpopularity, wouldn't vote for Donald Trump. They were too liberal. They were too blue. They have some orthodoxical Democratic tilt, and yes, they aren't going to flip for someone like Donald Trump. Well, the first district of Maine, this one I'll fill it now. I think it would go for Nancy Pelosi. It was somewhat safe for Hillary Clinton and a bunch of other Democrats in previous elections, and it will be the same this time. And oh yeah, Illinois, this one would go for the Democratic Party. So Nancy Pelosi is at 183 electoral votes, and Donald Trump is at 180 electoral votes. So, because of reasons I mentioned in previous videos, North Carolina and Arizona will go for the president. And yeah, this one, since Nancy Pelosi is against the strong border of the President Trump, and Arizona's voters are so concerned with immigration issue, the illegal immigration, which they deemed as disparagement of laws and sovereignty and some other things. First, in Arizona, favor strong border over open border, and Nancy Pelosi does not support strong borders. So yeah, Arizona would overwhelmingly vote for the president, and yes, it voted for the president in 2016 by a considerable margin, and it would do with even bigger margin in this scenario of the 2020 presidential election. And now, the state of Iowa and Ohio would go for Donald Trump. They voted for him by a big margin in 2016, I think that's something to be reckoned with. And yeah, they wouldn't go back to the Democratic column, so yeah, just 24 electoral votes added to the Trump column. And now going to the state of Florida, this one I see going for Donald Trump because there's been a red trend in the state of Florida. I mean, a lot of conservative voters, retired white voters, are moving into the state of Florida for some retirement destinations, and yes, they have extremely high turnout rates, and they are inclined to vote Republican, and I think that just gives Donald Trump an edge on any Democratic candidate in this scenario of in presidential election. And also, even though there are Hispanic voters, Latino voters in the state of Florida, which they are inclined to vote Democratic, but this time the president's approval rating among these groups, these voters, is doing pretty well, and I think he would win a lot of their support. So yeah, he would carry Florida's 29 electoral votes. And now the state of New Mexico, this one I see going for Nancy Pelosi. It's a pretty safe Democratic state. I don't see it going to the Trump column. And the state of Colorado, this one I see going for Donald Trump. For Nancy Pelosi. I think it's too hard for Donald Trump to win this, but although I think he might make the race in this state competitive, but I'm sure that he's not able to win in Colorado, especially with voters with some libertarian views and somewhat liberal ideologies, actually. Yeah, the state has moved to the left for a decade, and yeah, it would stick to its Democratic identity. And it's the same situation in the state of Virginia. I see President Trump losing in this state, and even though Nancy Pelosi is quite unpopular, I see her winning in this state. Yeah, she would. The state of Virginia is a pretty liberal state as of today, and yeah, the race here was not close in 2016, and to be quite honest, I don't think that any candidate who's similar to Trump or Trump himself would be able to win in the state of Virginia, since there are a lot of moderate voters, a lot of educated voters in the state of Virginia, and Trump doesn't really appeal to these groups. So yeah, he would lose the state of Virginia, and it's 13 electoral votes. But he would definitely grab 6 electoral votes from the state of Nevada. I mean, his approval rating here is doing impressively, and also, yeah, his base in this state is looking promising, and his approval rating among Hispanic constituents is going up. And as you already know, there are a lot of Hispanic constituents in the state of Nevada. So yeah, it's 6 electoral votes would land in the Trump column. Now going to the state of Pennsylvania, actually all the rest of those states I think would go for the president, since they went for him in 2016, and now his opponent in 2016 was unpopular. I mean, Hillary Clinton was hated by a lot of Democrats and independents, and also Republicans, and also she wasn't prepared to campaign in this state, but nevertheless she was unpopular, and that just cost her a number of these states. And now in this scenario, Trump is facing someone who is even more unpopular than Hillary Clinton was. And yeah, the Democratic Party now is somewhat splitting between the moderate Democrats and progressive Democrats, and Nancy Pelosi just stands with moderate Democrats, and she would lose some support from progressive Democrats, and yeah, and by that means I think she would lose all the Rust Belt states. And yes, she also lacks the ability to bring enthusiasm to voters and to invigorate voters, so I think she wouldn't be able to capture votes from them. Yeah, and with the same reason, I think Donald Trump would carry the state of Minnesota, where the race was extremely close in 2016. Now, going to the state of Maine, the second district is a sure thing for Trump. I mean, he won it by double digits in 2016. I don't see him losing in this district. And now, this is another flip for Donald Trump. The state of Maine, I think, would go Republican. The race here was very close in 2016, and Hillary Clinton narrowly won it. But now, in this case, Nancy Pelosi is quite unpopular. With the reasons I said, I think the state of Maine and its 2 electoral votes would go for Donald Trump, as well as the state of New Hampshire. The race here was extremely close in 2016. I think it would go Republican, and this is the first time since the election of 2000 the state of New Hampshire goes Republican. So this is the final electoral map for this scenario. Donald Trump having 328 electoral votes, and Nancy Pelosi having 210 electoral votes. So thank you guys so much for watching. You can like, share, and subscribe. And as I said, every share, every like, every subscription is appreciated. And I'll see you all later.